So he kind of got targeted. I think they played him in zone. Like that one time they went to 1-3-1 at the end of the first half, and he was on the, right wing if you're sitting behind the basket. I don't know what it's actually called. Probably left wing. But
Thomas was?
No.
Nana.
And he kind of just like fell down and slipped, and I feel like they were targeting him a little bit because he's not like a great defender, and as a freshman he's going to be struggling. Like, I know at least guys in the NBA, the rookies always struggle defending because they don't know the switches, they don't know the defensive schemes, which are a lot more complicated in the NBA, but compared to like AAU, when you're playing just a ton of games and no practice, you probably struggle to try to switch into that defensive mindset. And
but
really
Tom's a lot smaller, so it makes it hard for him to guard in like that sense too.
Yeah, but he stood up to their 7'2" guy and got the foul call. Remember that? They called like the reach around on him. It was a terrible call.
Yeah.
Another one that they should never call, just when the short guy is, he's literally a foot and 2 inches shorter than him. That's a pretty crazy call. And the final guy who had an interesting night was Isaiah Roby, the final guy who started.
I don't even feel like we can really... There's not really much to say because it was so bad. I guess it's not really Roby, but I don't like him coming out after 2 fouls in the first half. It makes no sense.
Or 3 fouls, or 4 fouls. You always want to keep your guys in the end of the game. In the first half, I would be okay with it when he was like...
If he got 2 fouls before, with like 10 minutes left in the first half, I think you take him out for like 5 minutes and then you play him for the last 5, unless he gets like a third with less than 2 minutes left in the first half, then you can take him out just so he doesn't get a quick
Which he
fourth.
did. And he got the first 2 fouls in the first 6 minutes. Tanner was going to come on after 4 minutes. And he couldn't make it in time. Roby, that was actually the one bad call for Roby. Like, he was bodying up the guy down low under the basket, and then he went into him, and that was a bad call, or bad foul by him.
Yeah, he only had like 2 probably that were actually deserved. But just in general, like, for anybody, even just taking him out after 2 fouls in the first half makes no sense because, you have to maximize their playing time, and I don't feel like taking him after 2 is going to do that anyways.
Yeah, it's important to realize how many fouls did he get in that last game.
He got 4, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
he had one more. So
yeah.
He could have been in the game longer. You could make the argument that you want to keep him into the second half where you want him to play like the whole second half, but that's clearly not what Miles was doing. He's doing the classic coach where, well, we have to have him at the end of the game instead of just being up by 10 at that point. But
against a good team, like, if you don't play him at the end of that first half, they could go on like a run because of it, and then just the game's over in the first place. Yeah,
they kind of did. They made that run at the end of the first half and kind of destroyed him. But yeah, he did play super well. Well, he didn't play super well when he was in. He had that monster dunk, but he only played 17 minutes. He was 3 for 5 from the field. He had a few layups and stuff. 1 for 1 on threes. Obviously, that massive dunk. That was probably like the 1-3, and the dunk was most of his shots. He didn't get to the free throw line at all, but picked up. He had 1 turnover, 1 block, 1 steal, 3 assists, and 4 rebounds, which basically reflects a game where he played 17 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't even realize he only played 17 minutes. That's really low.
He really,
yeah, he didn't.
He was
play
out.
at all.
He got taken out basically a minute afterwards, which, note, he played 17 minutes. Torin Thompson, who some people probably thought it was okay that for Seton Hall that he got out of the game that quickly. He played 5 minutes. He was a transfer from Syracuse who was like on the all ACC team last year when he transferred, their big man. And he had 4 fouls in 5 minutes. Or I think he fouled out. So they kind of got him on the big man calls too. But his were really bad. I went back and watched the game, and they were very obvious compared to Roby. Do you want to talk a little bit about that call? Or all the calls?
Every note, like, if you watched the game, you knew it was bad, so there's not really anything to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I noticed when I watched it back was it was even worse than I thought. So Palmer's man was coming behind him on the 3-point play, and he goes up and tries to switch with Roby's man. So Roby's man starts going out to Palmer.
Well, they did switch. That's why there was contact, because the guy that was guarding Palmer switched onto Roby because they did like a screen, and Roby didn't even make contact with Palmer's guy when he set the screen because the guy was playing such bad defense. And then Roby was just moving into position for like the rest of the play, and then the guy came to play defense on him and put his armbar on Roby because that's how you play defense.
Yeah. And
then they called a foul on Roby.
And he wasn't even moving at that point. He had his hands up, and he wasn't moving at that point. And
I think he had his hands up because he was probably calling for the ball. Like, I don't...
He wasn't, but
he was,
yeah.
He was high post.
I mean, it was absolutely crazy. And then there was the one on... Well, first they called a technical on Michael Lewis, not Miles, because he stood up. I don't know. I mean, I watched that back. I don't know what either of them did.
Did he even say anything? Because, like, you can stand up as a coach to tell your guys what to do.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy who called it was 60 feet away. I mean, I don't know, he couldn't have, like, said anything.
Yeah.
Because he was so far away, we wouldn't have been able to hear it. That was terrible, too. So that got him within 4, and then they scored to get within 2 as the crowd got really fired up. But after that, it was all Nebraska, and Palmer figured it out and started going at him.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was also the one on Tanner, who just went and tried to grab the ball. Oh, and he did grab the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And then they...
Oh, the loose ball?
Yeah.
Tanner dove on the floor, and then somebody jumped on top of him.
See, that's why
and then
people think that they started calling makeup calls for Palmer. They didn't. They never gave us a makeup call on that one. And they were convinced. So we're close enough to the floor where we can kind of see and hear what the people are talking about, especially when Miles is yelling. We're 10 rows up right by our bench, I mean, on the other side of the court. But the ref explaining that Roby call was saying, well, he was like walking forward, which, yes, he did walk forward, but then he stopped, and then the guy started playing defense on him. So, I mean, you can move.
Yeah, it's like after you pass it, you can't walk anymore.
You're stationary. You have to stop moving without the ball. It's like some ridiculous game that you play in practice. Once you pass, you have to stand still, or else it's a moving screen. Yeah.
So dumb.
So let's get into some of the guys on the bench. Tanner, he played not very much. Played 12 minutes and filled in for Roby, obviously, but then also got 4 fouls. He was 1 for 2 from the field, at 2 points. But he did have 7 rebounds, which is pretty impressive. I thought that he did well, but he kind of wasn't tall enough to contest, especially with their number 13 who was taking all the shots. He was able to drive into the lane when Tanner was in there and get good shots off.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising because usually he does pretty good on like defense, just being... I wonder if it's because he like lost some of that weight so he doesn't have the width like in front of him to keep guys far away. I don't know.
Yeah. So the other guy was Brady, who didn't even attempt a shot. He only had 2 rebounds, but I thought he almost played better, at least on the defensive end. Yeah, he was like always there. He had did he have a block?
I mean,
he had 1 block, but I think he just affected everything a lot more.
I think he can rotate a little faster than Tanner and like just get.
And he can jump. Yeah, I can't remember, but he always had in high school 5 to 10 blocks. I think he averaged it was around 5, at least his junior year. And so he can get a lot of blocks, and it's just so good to see that he can continue to do that even against teams that are really good.
Yeah. I think he just seems like be really basketball smart and understand, like, just defense in general.
Yeah, it's super good to understand, especially as a big man. You have to be the one switching. You have to be the one who's coming over and guarding help, and then you have to know that somebody else is guarding your man after you go and help. So just for him to be competent defensively as a freshman is pretty huge. And going off of that, he is a guy who, he's not the same as Jordy. He's not just...
He's not the same at all, really.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying as like a big man who started out pretty well. Jordy did too, at least. That's okay. True. And he was already big. He had played some defense. But Brady is, one, he's from Nebraska, and I don't think he's going anywhere. Also, he came in expecting to be somebody who maybe in their junior and senior year would be playing a lot. Mm-hmm. Especially, he came in, he committed, I think, before Jordy came in. He wasn't highly recruited by anybody else, I don't think. So he's a guy who we should have for the rest of his 4-year career. He's not probably going to go pro before that. And he's going to work hard too. Mm-hmm. I see no signs that would be... And he also can improve in all of the right areas. He's the perfect big man for today's NBA and college too, where he can actually shoot, he can stretch the floor, has the ability to kind of do everything. So, I mean, maybe he will go pro, but that would be pretty crazy.
I don't think he will, but, like, yeah, he can definitely, like, I think he has the potential to become, like, a three-point threat, and then also, like, if he gets bigger, be able to, like, post up and score down low.
Yeah, he just has he has good touch and seems to be able to shoot decent. We actually did have Justin Patton went from Creighton a few years ago, and he wasn't supposed to be good at all, but he was just super tall and long and got into the NBA. He was drafted in the first round. Now he's on Philly, hurt for the second straight season. So, yeah, maybe he can be a crazy success story like that out of Nebraska. And, I mean, we already talked about Nana, and Amir Harris, I feel like, didn't do too much different. Do we need to talk about him?
I don't really think so. So what do you think, like, what do you think we're going to be ranked now?
Or will we be ranked?
That's true. Yeah, that too.
So we were, I guess we're going by AP top 25. We were already 25 in the coaches poll, and we were something like 28 in the AP if you just kept going. We should be... Seton Hall was a pretty good team. I would say they were a top 40 team. They were a top 40 team in KenPom. We're in 27th or something in KenPom now. We're still number 1 in Sagarin. So if you average that out, no. I would say that we'll be 20 or 21.
That seems about fair.
Yeah. It was a big day or big week for all of the Big Ten. We won this Gavitt tip-off 5-3 for the first time. It had been 4-4 the last 3 years, which is since it started. And Michigan had that huge win over Villanova.
Big.
Iowa beat number 13 Oregon, and Indiana beat number 24 Marquette in the Gavitt games. Rutgers lost. Penn State lost by 2 to DePaul in overtime. But overall, it was a really good week. And sometimes I think that Michigan game was more important than us winning because of how important your conference strength of schedule was last year. So I kind of almost like how important it is because it makes it really fun. Your conference is like 13 other teams that you have to cheer for really hard because you really need them to be good, which it obviously is more fun when the Big Ten is actually good, not sucking like last year. It's a huge difference. I think there's 12 teams in the top 50 in KenPom out of 14. So that's really good. That's absolutely crazy. The top conferences are really high up except for the Pac-12. They're doing really bad this year. But yeah. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk about with the offense and how they're kind of modeling it like an NBA